The 2024 NBA draft isn't exactly loaded with proven shooters, which makes the variance in Jared McCain's rankings all the more fascinating. The biggest knock on McCain that I frequently hear is that he's just a shooter. Okay, I guess. If he is just a shooter, well, he's one of the very best shooters in the entire country. And at his age, as a freshman, shooting over 41% from three on 11 3 point attempts per 100 possessions, while ranking in the 91st percentile in points per shot attempt on all jumpers, the 90th percentile shooting off the catch, and the 81st percentile shooting off the dribble. That's not too bad for just a shooter. Now, shooting is a big part of the modern NBA game, and being an elite shooter, high volume, high efficiency on its own is a fantastic way to break into a rotation and at a minimum get seventh, eighth man minutes on a consistent basis. Now, maybe that is all Jared McCain ends up being is just a shooter. But even so, if you're getting an elite shooter in this draft class who can give you 20-ish minutes a night, if not more, why is that player not consistently mocked in the lottery? In a draft class that consistently gets derided for its lack of talent, getting an elite off ball shooter at a minimum feels like a lottery pick. The fascinating and the really, really fun part about McCain's offensive evaluation, though, is trying to figure out what else is there. Is he really just a shooter? Or is there more? Is there more lurking beneath the surface? Was he pigeonholed into a role at Duke where he was very clearly the best off ball shooter, so he didn't get any on ball reps? He didn't get to run point. He didn't get to display his playmaking. Now, that's kind of a chicken or the egg argument where was he put in that role because he was the best, or was he put in that role because he couldn't do the other stuff too? We've seen flashes from McCain, whether it's his absurd at rim finishing where he shot over 61% at the rim this year. 61% at 6'2". He shot over 61% at the rim. 6'2" without shoes, combine measurement, just being clear there. But not only is Jared McCain an elite outside shooter, he's also an elite at rim finisher. 61% at the rim is incredible for any perimeter player, let alone a 6'2 guard. So when we look at McCain's entire body of work, even going back to a little bit of his high school tape, I really struggle to believe that he is just a shooter. I'm Tyler Metcalf. Welcome to Film School. Let's dive in. When we talk about McCain's offense, the first place we have to start is the off-ball shooting. It's simply incredible. It's so impressive how consistently he just knocks down these open shots from NBA range. When spotting up this year, Jared McCain ranked in the 78th percentile in points per possession. Additionally, McCain was one of the best three-point shooters in transition, where he shot 56.6% on over 50 three-point attempts in transition. He does such a phenomenal job of filling his lane, getting to his spot, and immediately letting open shots fly. McCain's shot preparation is fantastic. He's incredibly comfortable relocating and moving to open pockets on the perimeter, and he will even knock down a series of no dip catch and shoot threes. Even when the shot is off platform like this, let's just go back a little bit. That's a really tough catch. Now, Filipowski does a good job of making this read, but catching this ball at your ankles is really difficult for a shooter to then immediately get into his rhythm and get a shot off over a defender who's closing out aggressively. McCain's unfazed, lets it fly, nothing but net. Once he gives up the ball in these types of situations, he's immediately relocating. He's providing that extra spacing for his teammates. He's catching this at the logo. Now, Miami's logo is a bit large and obnoxious, but he's still at the logo. This is still well behind an NBA line that's about here. This is insane. And zero hesitation. Shot prep is perfect, hops into it, lets it fly, quick release, and drains it. This one's fantastic. Ball never goes below his shoulders, catches immediately up. The footwork is always phenomenal with McCain, especially off the ball. Hops into it, ball is always high, ensures that he's going to be able to get it off quickly before defenders like PJ Hall here can recover and really contest it. I know it's going, like in the live play here, it looks like Hall gets an okay contest. This is a wide open jumper for McCain, and you can't give guys like McCain an inch of room. His release is so quick, his fundamentals are consistent every time, and he is just absolute money off the catch. Even if McCain is just a shooter, he's going to be one of the very best shooters from the 2024 NBA draft. What sets McCain apart from a lot of shooters, especially shooters his age, is that he isn't just a standstill shooter either. We saw how effective he is with just simple kind of relocation and transition stuff, but running off screens is incredibly common for McCain, and he found nothing but success this year when doing so, and he did it at a really high volume. In fact, McCain ranked in the 87th percentile in off-screen play type frequency and ranked in the 65th percentile in points per possession. At his age, at that volume, that's really impressive stuff. So let's just kind of see how he's able to get into his spot here. So as he circles through, he's going to get the pass, nothing here. It's well defended, just immediately gives it up. And let's get into the next series in the action. Again, runs off another screen. He's basically just going to simulate that exact same motion, just going back to the other side. He doesn't care. He doesn't care that he just sprinted across half the court. He's doing it again because that's what the play type calls for, and he wants his open three. So as he sprints back through, the previous time, defender chased him around the screen. This time, defender's going over the screen. McCain just gives a little peek over his shoulder to track where the defender is. He sees him going over the screen, so instead of curling all the way up, McCain's going to settle back and fade into the corner, which is something we see from elite off-ball shooters all the time, and it's just going to create an even bigger window because it's creating all of this space between his defender, who's not able to get through that screen. By settling in, McCain has a wide-open three, perfect shot prep, elevates effortlessly into his shot, smooth, nothing but net. This time we see McCain basically run the exact same set as before, or same action as before, but the defender does a much better job sticking to him, and McCain's kind of forced to break out a bit of physicality, a bit of craft, and really utilize that quick release of his. All right, so again, we're just going to see McCain run baseline. He's going to try and sprint and curl off the screen. Defenders glued to him. McCain doesn't really want it. He's not feeling it. Defender's right on him. He didn't get to the spot he wanted, and he's immediately pointing back to the ball handler to reset, pivot back to the other side. McCain's now going to spin back and just do the exact same thing again. This time, though, Cormac Ryan's doing a really good job of staying glued to him, so McCain wants some separation. He needs some space to breathe, so he's just going to kind of kill his momentum here, utilize his strength, and launch off of Cormac Ryan here to just create a little bit of extra space for him to now finally finish this off and sprint off this screen. As he does so, he knows that Ryan is trailing him, so he's curling up over the screen, the opposite of what we saw in the previous clip where he faded into the corner. As he curls off the screen, Ryan does a pretty good job of getting through it, and McCain's eyes are immediately to the rim, and he can see Ryan coming through the screen in his peripherals. McCain's shot prep is perfect, catches, hops into it, immediately gets squared, high release, quick release, beats Ryan off the ground, and Ryan has no chance of contesting it. Ryan does a really good job of defending this play from start to finish, but McCain's craft, his physicality, and his shooting fundamentals allow him to knock down this shot with ease. What's really fun about McCain's off-ball movement and off-ball offense is that he can also parlay his off-ball scoring and shooting into playmaking opportunities like this. So as McCain's going to curl off the screen and receive this pass, he knows that his defender is trailing him behind, and he sees all of this space. Drop defender is technically in the right position, but his stance is affording McCain all this space to attack to because he's really closed off and kind of just surrendering the space to McCain. He catches and immediately attacks downhill. By getting downhill, McCain completely collapses the defense. There are now four defenders in the paint, and by utilizing this jump stop, McCain's able to kill his momentum without barreling into a defender for a bad shot or an offensive foul and just kind of find his composure. Despite being in all of this traffic, McCain doesn't panic for a second. He secures the ball through the digs, a lot of arms, a lot of length. McCain, again, only measured at 6'2" without shoes. So this is a lot of traffic for him to kind of be dealing with, and he is unfazed throughout the entire thing. Despite being in the trees here, McCain knows that his teammate is wide open in the corner. He knows that he has attracted four defenders into the paint and that he has a teammate wide open. McCain is patient, leaves his feet to kind of change the angle, give himself a little better guarantee of delivering this pass, makes a skip pass to a wide open teammate. Really clean look. Shot unfortunately doesn't fall. So even if McCain doesn't turn into more of a kind of primary initial point guard, on-ball creator, combo guard, his playmaking can still be utilized in sets like these where he can utilize his off-ball scoring gravity to then pair with his passing to create for others. Again, we see Duke do a really good job of putting McCain in motion and making it seem like he's like they're trying to free him up for an off-ball jumper and instead putting him in position to create for others. So a lot of window dressing here for Duke with McCain running off screens, a little handoff, DHO, pick and roll action into some pin downs. The main point, all of that to basically just set up an empty corner pick and roll. That's what McCain is doing here as he's curling off that Filipowski screen. Similar kind of situation as the previous clip where he's curling off that screen and driving downhill to the middle of the floor. This time, the drop defender is a little more shaded to take away that space from McCain. He steps to him. McCain makes just a really sound decision here, changes the release angle, feeds Filipowski rolling to the rim. This should be an easy layup. Filipowski can't finish, unfortunately, so McCain doesn't get the assist. But all of this is stemmed through McCain's ability to not only move off ball like a professional off ball scorer, but then pass and create for teammates. That ability to be a connective passer, to keep the ball moving and create within the flow of the offense, gives McCain a lot of versatility going forward when we talk about what type of role he'll be playing in. One of the bigger concerns with McCain translating to being more than just an off-ball shooter is that he really struggled to kind of create his own shot consistently, especially out of isolation. Now, to McCain's credit, he only ran 14 isolation possessions all year at Duke per synergy, which ranked in the 5th percentile in terms of frequency. So he was never really in position to do it, but based on what we saw from him, a lot of it felt like that's because he wasn't necessarily great at it. A lot of McCain's kind of on-ball creation stuff, he's very good when there's a screen involved. We'll get to it in a minute here. But in isolation situations, it's all 2-3 dribble pull-up stuff, and he's an awesome pull-up shooter, so that's okay. But against NBA level defenders, it's not going to be as impressive. He's not much of a dynamic space creator, and everything is pretty straight line drive. That doesn't mean to say that there isn't some good stuff here. So as we can see here, McCain this is kind of in an off-ball role, but it is an isolation possession. He points for the screen, which before it even gets there, he's going, and attacks downhill, and does a good job of kind of beating his defender to the spot. Taller, slower defender, so he's able to kind of keep him on his heels, catches him off balance, secures the ball through traffic, and does a really good job here of extending with that left hand to finish over the late block attempt. That's a really tough shot, but there's nothing really dynamic here. He doesn't have a super explosive first step. There's not a whole lot of wiggle, and even when he gets to the rim, there's not a ton of explosiveness. So in terms of being an isolation scorer, it's tough to see him really growing into that role. Now, to just provide a little bit of optimism to that potential development for McCain, is that he's really good at kind of capitalizing on angles, and he has a ton of craft finishing around the rim, which again we'll dive into a little more later. But as he receives this inbounds pass, the defender's in kind of a tough position. The defender might be expecting baseline help here, but there's nothing. And McCain almost begrudgingly just takes the space afforded to him. As he drives, defender never makes contact with him. He eats up the space. Heady play, elevates off 2 feet, allows him to kind of contort his body, avoid the late rotation by the help defender, adjusts the ball, finishes with a scoop layup. That's a really crafty finish. So even though there's not a ton of wiggle or explosiveness here from McCain, he does a really good job of just making the simple decision and executing what based on what the defense gives him. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of stuff like this possession where McCain struggles with longer defenders, and when they don't make an error, he struggles to create space or get a clean look. Here, McCain's going against Baba Miller, who has a ton of size on him, and it's all just very one speed and very one directional. McCain's not, there's no wiggle here. There's no real threat of a step back. There's no real threat of an explosive first step. So stuff like this is where it really becomes questionable how McCain, or if McCain, can get his own looks without a screen. And one last one, we yet again see McCain just kind of have an okay handle. It's nothing crazy. It's not bad, but it's not good. And when a defender's able to kind of move his feet and wall up, McCain doesn't have a whole lot of counters to go to. He doesn't have a ridiculous first step. He doesn't have a ridiculous step back or spin move or a go-to move or physical trait that he can counter good defense with. He's an elite shooter, and if a defender trips or stumbles or gives him too much of an angle going to the rim or is caught off balance and McCain's able to kind of pull up and knock down a shot, those are situations where McCain can and does find a lot of success. But when he is finding success as an on-ball scorer, it's almost always when a screen is involved or a defender is making a mistake. When those things aren't present, McCain really unfortunately struggles to get his own looks and clean looks. Thankfully for McCain and for us, the NBA is littered with screens. The fact that McCain can't or doesn't consistently create his own shot out of nothing is fine because very few NBA players can do that. Thankfully, though, there are these things called handoffs and screens that run rampant in the NBA, and McCain is one of the very best in the 2024 NBA draft class at scoring out of these situations. This year, McCain ranked in the 70th percentile in at-rim scoring and shot over 61% at the rim in the half court. Doing that as a purely below-the-rim finisher at 6'2" is ludicrous. Additionally, he ranked in the 62nd percentile in points per possession and handoffs and the 93rd percentile as a pick-and-roll ball handler. There's a ton of upside with McCain's on-ball scoring. He just kind of needs a screen to get everything flowing. So as we can see here, McCain has a ton of craft. As he receives his handoff, he does a great job of slamming on the brakes, which sends his defender flying. Now, McCain can attack downhill in kind of a 2v1 situation as his defender scrambles to recover. This is awesome. I know it feels simple, but McCain does a brilliant job of veering back into his defender and putting him in jail. This is the type of craft and physicality that we constantly see with some of the very best point guard on ball and pick and roll creators. I know I've mentioned McCain's height a few times, his lack of explosiveness, but what I've failed to mention is how freaking strong he is. It shows up in his rebounding, but it really shows up in his ability to navigate the pick and roll and finish at the rim. So by veering back, he ensures, or at least makes life incredibly more difficult for his primary defender. He then kind of does a great job of holding his defender in jail here, which starts to freak out Armando Bacot as he still is in this kind of 2v1 situation. Now that his defender has gone from his left hip to his right hip, McCain does an awesome job of utilizing this jump step through the two defenders, splits the defense, plays off 2 feet, is always under control, avoids the swipe, secures the ball, extends to protect it, and finishes through the contact. This is really high level craft and strength and footwork from a freshman. McCain again shows us his utilization of balance, footwork, and strength to get just an awesome look at the rim here. So while McCain may not have positional size in terms of height, he definitely has positional strength, especially when going against smaller defenders or defenders of similar size. So as the play kind of gets into the flow here, just kind of standard DHO at the top, and McCain knows his defender's chasing him over the screen because, of course, he is. McCain's a nasty shooter. You go over the screens on that. From here, McCain, again, puts his defender in jail and has the strength to hold him off for a really long time here. McCain veers back. Bacot's kind of caught in no man's land. McCain has done a brilliant job of just eliminating his defender from this play. RJ Davis isn't exactly a elite defender, but he's quick and he's feisty. But McCain has eliminated him from multiple plays now, and this time he's keeping him in jail from before the 3-point line. McCain again plays off 2 feet, extends with that left hand. His defender's in no man's land. His jump stop sent Bacot reeling. He didn't know what to do. Easy layup. This is a really easy look, all because McCain is really patient, really composed, and really strong. It's impressive stuff from a guy who is just a shooter. Now, if McCain is going to be this awesome shooter and awesome pick and roll creator, we better see him shoot out of the pick and roll. Thankfully, he's more than comfortable. McCain ranked in the 81st percentile on dribble jumpers this season, whether it's off the catch, off the bounce, pick and roll, transition, off screens, it doesn't matter. He's an awesome shooter. So here he does a really good job of just being patient, letting Ryan Young kind of flip the screen, reposition it. Clemson's trying to ice this and keep him in the corner, keep him out of the middle of the floor. So PJ Hall being this far back allows Young to really do a good job. I'll just back it up so we can see him kind of flip this screen initially. So as Young initially comes to set it, Joe Girard is going to slide up to try and keep McCain in the corner here. PJ Hall's too far back, and Young is just going to flip this. McCain does an awesome job of just being patient, letting it develop, and now he's able to come off this screen, attack this space, and Joe Girard's out of the play. He's done because of that screen and that patience. Instead of attacking downhill against a bigger defender, McCain is just trying to seek open space, and that's a real common theme with his pick and roll creation is just where is the space? As he comes off the screen, he's just eating up the space that's afforded to him, that's been created from that screen. He's just going to veer back to the 3-point line. He knows that Girard is out of the play. He's scrambling to recover. Once he gets behind this 3-point line and sees PJ Hall retreat to Ryan Young, he's rising up. His fundamentals are too good. He doesn't need a huge window. He rises up, drops in the 3. Having this versatility, this patience, and this confidence to get whatever shot you want out of the pick and roll is really crucial when we think about how McCain can grow and develop into more than just an off-ball shooter. Now, obviously, the biggest development that McCain has to make if he's going to kind of make this transition that we've seen from a lot of kind of combo-y guards of his size who trend or develop from a shooting guard into more of a point guard is whether or not he can create for others and play more of a point guard role. There are flashes. McCain's assist numbers on the year are incredibly lackluster, but to his credit, first off, he was never put in positions. Well, I shouldn't say never. He was rarely put in positions to create for others or initiate the offense. And also, you have to make the shot. To get an assist, you have to make the shot. And there are flashes even going back to high school. So let's try and look into some of these. So here, they're just going to kind of run an empty corner side pick and roll here with Filipowski, and we get to see a bit of McCain's processing and kind of creativity and passing flair here out of it. So as he comes off the screen, Filipowski's just going to switch, and Louisville now has two defenders at the level, with Filipowski rolling really hard to an empty corner. Keep an eye on number 0 here for Louisville, who's going to really, really aggressively rotate. As Filipowski rolls, number 0 is sprinting to the opposite side of the lane. He's not tagging, he's not showing. He is full on rotating to the other side, while both these defenders are kind of still at the level. The initial drop defender is going to kind of end up getting caught in no man's land, as these two help defenders are not doing much of anything, honestly. Drink if you've heard this before, but Louisville's defense is an absolute mess on this possession, and Jared McCain reads it really well. So as he kind of comes off this, continues to come to the middle of the floor, McCain is just staring down these defenders. His eyes are towards Filipowski to move both of these defenders that way. The low man has completely abandoned his position in the middle of the lane and is so far out of position, he's left Sean Stewart wide open on the block, and neither of these two weak side defenders have picked up on it and are way too close to each other. Additionally, McCain's primary defender still hasn't gotten completely back ringside, and the initial drop defender is still caught in no man's land. So McCain is looking and staring down Filipowski to move the initial drop defender and the low man towards Filipowski to free up Stewart for an open look. Live dribble pass, no look, doesn't get the bucket, but gets the foul. Just really sound kind of manipulation by McCain and really impressive live dribble stuff. There are levels to it. There's a lot of room to grow, but this is the kind of stuff and the growth that we want to see from McCain moving forward if he is going to trend into more of that on-ball creator role. Jamal Murray is a name that I use occasionally with McCain when I try and sell people on what I think McCain's 95th percentile type of outcome could be if he really does trend into that on-ball creator role, and it's because of kind of the two-man game stuff that he can run, like we see here. McCain can't, at least yet, create a shot on ball like Murray does, but some of the passing and two-man game and pick-and-roll DHO stuff in terms of passing does mirror some of what Murray does. So as Duke kind of gets into their stuff here, again, we're going to see McCain and Filipowski just run this empty corner pick-and-roll DHO. McCain does a really good job of, and initially he picks up his dribble way too soon here. He's got to keep that alive, string out that defender a little bit. Like we just saw, we saw how much Louisville just struggled defending that. Low man's in a much better spot here, but picks up his dribble too early, but does a really good job of just immediately getting back into the handoff. And even though he killed his dribble, got rid of it too quickly, the decisiveness and the ability to immediately get back into this handoff and attack downhill keeps the play alive and keeps it going. So by doing so, McCain's able to get through the traffic and beat his defender to the spot as he attacks baseline. By beating his defender to the spot, getting them on his hip, McCain is now going to guarantee that this low man has to completely rotate, and this low man has to rely on his other weaks or his teammate on the weak side here to rotate down as well. As McCain drives, he uses a little shot fake, gets the defender in the air, changes the release point of his pass, passes around the defender, and he knows that this weak side defender hasn't collapsed. He hasn't fulfilled his responsibilities, and McCain does a really good job of kind of using a bit of craft and creativity to set up Mark Mitchell, who, again, unfortunately doesn't get the bucket here, but draws the foul, and it's really good processing. On this one, we see how McCain is starting to implement a lot of the craft and the off-ball movement and creativity that we've seen throughout this entire video on this play. So again, as he tries to free himself up, go back to that clip where Cormac Ryan was guarding McCain and how physical McCain got with him to kind of free himself up. We see a little bit of that as he pushes off here, frees him up, creates a window for the handoff, and allows him to attack downhill. Nice little high step as he comes off this handoff, freezes his defender for a moment, and allows him to now attack down baseline. Let's just watch that a little more cleanly. So a little high step there. It just makes the defender pause. It doesn't get rid of the defender, but that slight pause allows McCain to now get half a step advantage, and we've seen him have the strength to hold off guys once he has that advantage. Now that he's attacking downhill, again, he's going to force that rotation from the low man. McCain knows this. He knows that he's not skying over the defender at the rim. He knows that he's a below-the-rim finisher, but by utilizing the shot fake, he gets both defenders in the air. McCain's in a really bad spot to finish this, and he never has any intention of taking a layup here. The whole point of that shot fake and to leave his feet was to get both these defenders off the ground. By doing so, he now changes the angle. I mean, that's ridiculous. This isn't a ridiculous pass. Around the defender, through the contact, to Sean Stewart, who, again, unfortunately, can't get the bucket. McCain doesn't get anything on this play. He doesn't get an assist. There's nothing. He deserves a lot better. Duke deserves 2 points here. The process, the creativity, the craft, and his ability to get downhill, it's all really impressive stuff that you want to see from a primary kind of creator combo guard. Out of these screening actions, McCain's playmaking isn't just limited to interior passing either. He does a really good job of reading the weak side and finding open shooters on that weak side. And this example is a really good example of how effortlessly this feels like a simple pass, but it shows how McCain can consistently and effectively use the gravity of his two-man game to then find shooters on the weak side, and that ability to read the weak side and find those weak side corner shooters, both above and below the break, even stems back to high school. So as he's just going to come off this pin down, Duke's just going into another empty corner pick and roll. We saw earlier Clemson wanted to ice it, keep it on the side, keep McCain out of the middle of the floor. That's their whole defensive philosophy against Duke here, is to keep the ball out of the middle of the floor. So Girard going over the screen, drop defender, they're all doing it. Help defender is now going to really aggressively rotate over to Filipowski, and that is what McCain is reading. McCain's not necessarily looking for his own shot, but he's looking to attack this space afforded to him and potentially set up Filipowski on a pocket pass. And Filipowski's rolling into the space. It's a short roll here for him because he knows that the paint is really crowded and that Clemson's trying to keep him out, so he's trying to find an open pocket here. McCain's eyes go to this help defender. He sees that both feet are well inside the lane, so he knows Tyrese Proctor's wide open on the opposite wing. Delivers the pass, but by making this pass, it freezes the defender for just a second, because as it's coming out of McCain's hands right here, this defender can't guarantee if it's going to Proctor or Filipowski here. He has to freeze for just an extra second until that ball sails over his head. Now he has to scramble to recover to the open shooter. That's a wide open three. Proctor unfortunately can't hit it, But the process, and it's a simple decision here by McCain, but it's exactly what you want to see your on ball playmaker do when running that two-man game. Even going back to high school, McCain had flashes of being a really good passer, and we see him being able to read that weak side at a really high level here yet again. So this one is out of more of an isolation situation. Obviously, he doesn't need a screen here against high schoolers. Handle looks a little bit tighter, encouraging. First step gets the defender on his hip, and we know once that defender's on his hip, it's really tough for them to recover. By getting downhill like this, McCain is again collapsing the defense. He, as he gets downhill, he knows that defenders' eyes are on him, on him, on him, on him, and they're all in the middle of the court. So as he drives, he knows that his teammate is wide open in the corner here. Live dribble, skip pass, through traffic. There are 3 defenders here. That is not a big window. And McCain delivers an absolute dime right to his teammate. Good screen. Shot just doesn't fall. This is really, really solid processing by McCain to read the weak side and exactly what all the defenders are doing. All right, one last one, just to kind of continue to show some of McCain's flair and playmaking creativity going back to high school. And this is against Ron Holland's Duncanville high school team. So as McCain pushes in the early offense, just a nice little tight ball handling, much better than most of the stuff we saw from him at Duke. A little crisper, is able to kind of explode out of this and get downhill, beat his defender. He's attacking that high foot, which is going to force the defensive rotations. As he gets downhill now, he has the edge, and he knows that, I believe this is Ron Holland here in the paint, that Holland has to step up to him to take away the layup, and that his eyes are fully on the ball. Again, live dribble, through traffic. McCain delivers it to his teammate in the dunker spot, and he eventually gets the bucket. Just a bit of fun, bit of flair, bit of creativity, and it shows that McCain has some real playmaking chops when he was put in the position to do them. Jared McCain is one of the most fascinating evaluations in the 2024 NBA draft. Even if McCain just ends up being an off-ball shooter in the NBA, all signs are pointing to him being a fantastic one. Shooting over 41% on the year from 3, both off the dribble, off the bounce. It's impressive stuff, and it's at high volume and a ton of versatility. McCain was able to navigate the pick and roll and get into pull-up threes. He was a lethal shooting option when running in transition. His fundamentals are sound, they're consistent. He even experimented with some no-dip catch-and-shoot releases. No matter what the situation is in terms of shooting, McCain is one of the very, very best shooters in the 2024 NBA draft. And that skill alone is going to afford him minutes in the NBA. Few players come into the league as polished of a shooter as McCain already is. So even if he is just a shooter, he's going to be a top 7-8 guy in a rotation for a very long time. Should that type of player really be going in the late first? If you can get that kind of value alone, that's easy, at least a top 20 pick, especially in this draft that has so many questions. Now, I tend to lean more on the optimistic side in terms of McCain's development and what he could potentially one day grow into. I'm not saying it's going to be a year 1 or 2 thing, but by year 5 or 6, I think we're going to see more of him trending into the Jamal Murray, CJ McCollum archetype of player, not necessarily hitting those highs, but that ability to be more of a combo point guard who can initiate the pick and roll, who can play an awesome two-man game, who can facilitate for others, but can also get their own shots, who can also maximize their strength and their footwork and their balance to be an elite at-rim finisher. We saw all year how Jared McCain finished over 61% of his shots at the rim. Being a purely below the rim finisher, in the half court at least, that's incredibly impressive. McCain is one of the very best at-rim finishers for any perimeter player in this draft class. Shooting over 61% at his size is tough to do, and it's a real testament to his balance, his strength, and his creativity to playing off of both feet and ability to adjust midair. Going back to high school, we've seen flashes of playmaking and pick and roll operation from McCain. It's going to be rare when McCain really breaks down a defender in isolation and gets his own shot or completely manipulates a defense on his own to create for others. However, once you introduce a screen or put him in motion, McCain's playmaking and decision making and scoring craft really, really shine. Thankfully, NBA offenses are littered with screening actions. It's really rare that we see NBA teams just going isolation, here, take the ball, figure it out. And those types of players are the ones that are typically in the top 5 of MVP ballots. If McCain hits that outcome, fantastic. If he doesn't, then he's just going to be like 99% of the league, and that's okay. When we think about McCain going forward, at a minimum, he's going to be an awesome shooter. But how much more of that offense can really develop into something legitimate? We've seen flashes of it over the last couple years at different levels in different situations. But at a minimum, being an elite shooter, Jared McCain's offense is one of the more intriguing traits in this draft class for an individual player. Once we add in the at-rim finishing, the craft, the strength, the positional advantage that gives him, and the playmaking upside, Jared McCain turns into a fantastically fascinating offensive option and one of the more intriguing guards in the 2024 NBA draft.